Welcome back to another Car-Pinionated. I'm your host, Doug Stewart, Senior Digital Content Producer at Fox 61 in Hartford. And this is my friend, Glenn Packman. Say hello, Glenn.
Hello, Glenn. How are you, Doug?
I'm doing great, Glenn. How are you?
Recuperated from a light bout of COVID. Could have been worse. Could have been much, much worse.
Yeah.
But feeling better, yay. So
yeah, good.
Back to 100%.
I'm doing the asthma thing today.
Oh,
So
I'm sorry.
if I sound like, like a Halloween decoration left out on the porch too long, that's why. So Glenn, you brought up an interesting wrinkle in the EV situation for EV buyers.
I did.
You want to talk about it?
Sure. We can't help, but just as a little bit of a preface, we can't help but venture a little bit into the territory of politics here. But what has happened is the current administration has re-upped the $7,500 tax credit for buying an electrical vehicle, which is great. What's even greater in my mind is that they are changing the parameters of the credit. Previously, when you bought an electric vehicle, you would apply for the credit with the IRS, and you would get that money back on your tax refund, as a tax refund. But the catch was you had to owe $7,500 or more to get the full $7,500 back. So to that end, it kind of makes it prohibitive to a whole class of people, lower income earners. Let's say it's a young person who's buying their first vehicle and they just aren't paying that much into the system. They're not getting it back. And that's kind of unfair, actually. So they recognized that, and they've officially changed the new credit, and it's going to be done specifically between the IRS and car dealers, which might work well, we hope. But I do like the fact that everybody's getting the $7,500. It's coming off the cost of the car instead of the shell game with the tax situation. And
right.
My personal take on it is I know it's probably going to need some work, and there's probably going to be some chances for this to be abused. I hope it doesn't happen, but I think the idea is terrific to just give people the credit for electric vehicle, because they're more expensive in general, and it's bringing them back down to the point where they're more affordable. And that's the idea,
Right. Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a great way to do it, because that's been the problem all along, that some people weren't getting it,
right.
And taxes are, in my mind, a mystical thing. So, sure. I couldn't tell you if, where that would lie when I went to buy a car. But now, if you have a different, more direct to consumer path, as long as all those pieces work, and we're going to find some bumps in the road. That's what happens. This is uncharted territory for a lot of people. And so we're just going to have to figure out what those bumps are. But, it's not like, I don't know the allegory to Cash for Clunkers that this, this system has. So, we'll see. But I totally agree. I think it's a great thing that, gives another incentive for people to buy. Now, the next thing I wonder is like how the states would then work. Because actually I should have looked this up, but I don't know how the state rebates work. In terms of, buying that. And, it also helps with buying used EVs. And seeing how that works. So it's a good thing.
Maybe we've tapped on something for a future episode, is that once all this is in place, one of us will do the research and we'll map out exactly how to go about buying an EV. It'd be great, because there's lots and lots of people out there who know very, very little about EVs, like me, for example. And the more I'm reading up on them and the more I'm looking, the more interesting it becomes. It's just we're working on the environmental friendliness of EVs, obviously, but the big thing is that just with zero emissions, it's important. Some people will argue that it isn't, but neither here nor there. I think EVs have arrived. They're definitely the wave of the future. And to say that they're not is just, I think you're being silly. People want them, is what it comes down to.
Ostrich-like.
I think it's more than just a trend. I think it's the wave of the future. Hey, remember when people said rock and roll was just a trend? Or rap music was just a trend, or flat screen TVs. There's a great analogy there, because flat screen TVs were ridiculously expensive when they first came out.
Oh God, yeah.
And small, and just, and then they slowly got bigger and cheaper because it's what people demanded and what they wanted, and because they were just better, they're just a better product. And that's where electric cars have to go, is it has to be a better product and a better choice all the way around. And we're getting there. We're honestly getting there. I think we're seeing it happen. A few years ago, I would not have been saying that, but I think, currently we have a lot of electric cars that are really worth paying attention to. And the more they build, the lower the price will become over time. And I think my personal feeling just is that we continue the credit to bring them in line with the gasoline car. So because the argument could be, well, we were just talking about VW that is thinking about putting out a $25,000 EV. Well, $7,500 off of that brings it way down low. And so okay, all right,
like in a reasonable place,
right. 25 is already in a reasonable place. So we to that end, we just we create some sort of evenness here, where cars are discounted bigger for to bring them in line with the competition. That's a little complex, but
right. Although in that specific case, it's unlikely that that VW would be qualified because it's built in Germany. But your point still stands, that if somebody, let's say GM, was selling the successor to the Bolt, I said it right there, is selling the successor to the Bolt, in that kind of mid-20s price range, then then you're bringing it down, and didn't we price out Nissan Versas that were in the $20,000 range?
Right. And that's the least expensive car out there, pretty much. And there it is. So it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing that we're making an electric vehicle one of the options out there for inexpensive, travel. It's what a great thing. Let's promote the industry. Don't like electric cars? Well, you don't have to, but
it's not the right car for everyone.
Not yet.
And the biggest thing is the infrastructure and the charging time and the range anxiety.
Right.
We all get that, but steps are being taken to get in a better place, and people are figuring things out. And for our friends who live in apartments, it's not right now. It's it's kind of it doesn't really work. But I always come back to this. It's like there used to be a buggy whip industry in this country, and they stopped making buggies. And at some point that changed. And
sure. Well, I mean, gasoline cars have gotten so much better over the years. I mean, the technology continues to move forward with them. Why would we think that it wouldn't work the same way with electric vehicles? We're going to see it happen. We're on the cusp, and it's exciting. I'm glad I'm seeing it in my lifetime. Where it will lead, we don't know, but that's the auto industry. It tastes change. What people want changes constantly, and it's hard to predict. So I guess we'll see. But I think in the meanwhile, this whole thing about getting the money to the masses is a great idea instead of isolating it.
It's we will close this topic with the classic TV journalism outro. The future remains to be seen.
Mhm. It does.
The other thing we want to talk about in this segment is fall drives. Now, right now, as we record this, it's the middle of October. It's the later middle of October. And so some areas may or may not still have foliage out. But, I think there's a lot of times out there, and I have fond memories as a kid getting out in the big station wagon and going for a Sunday ride and going
Mhm.
someplace and looking at foliage or whatever. So I wanted to talk about, and we're in New England. Our friends at WGRZ are going to be airing Car-Pinionated on their WGRZ Plus channel. And so I've also picked one from Western New York State. So do you have specific rides, drives you want to go on, Glenn, or do you have, or you just want to talk in general?
I can think of two specific ones. I mean, the overarching thing is come to the Northeast. With Doug and I are both here in Connecticut, which is a great place to live, but not like that much of a tourist location, with the exception of the autumn season. And there are plenty of really, really beautiful drives here in quiet little Connecticut, if that's the thing that you're looking for. I can think in and around the Connecticut River valley, to the closer to the end of the river, near the ocean. Stop in at Gillette State Park.
Like
That's
Castle? Yeah,
Gillette Castle, which is in and of itself just a marvel. But that
yeah.
whole area this time of year is really beautiful. Spin into the little town of Essex, which is just
Oh,
classic
yeah,
New
yeah.
England. It's just but other than our home state, I can think of two. The one, if you want to get something really, if you want to see the ocean and the foliage and just take in what the essence of New England is, I'm going to say drive along the coast, beginning at the New Hampshire Maine state line and head north as far as you want. It's a spectacular, beautiful, understated part of the country. It's not that well known, but boy, is it beautiful. There's a lot of really good food up there. Obviously, lobster if that's your thing, but
I
there's a
was
lot
going
to.
to say, yeah.
Yes, exactly. Mention the lobsters. But there's a lot to do in and around that area. But the drive is just absolutely gorgeous. And the other one I want to mention is actually outside of New England, sort of. We're in the process of actually selling our lake home. We've had a property out on a small lake in upstate New York, and to get there, there's a little known drive that is a small portion of it is just spectacular, but so worth doing. Go to Port Jervis, New York, in all of its resplendent glory, and I'm being a little sarcastic there. Head north on Route 97, New York State Route 97. You will go through an area called the Hawk's Nest, which is this twisty, turny road that runs pretty much along the edge of a cliff and above the Delaware River. It is absolutely breathtaking. And continue on as far as you want up 97, because it'll take you right along the Delaware, which is it's backwoods. There's not a lot going on out there, but it sure is beautiful. It's unspoiled, and just it's the anti tourist trap. It's just there really isn't too much to see. But
No.
again, look for little places to stop in. I would say drive all the way up to Narrowsburg, New York, and make that your terminus. And Narrowsburg is a charming, adorable, tiny little town. All 600 feet of its main street has sidewalks. Wow. But there's some really good restaurants in Narrowsburg. There's a bridge in Narrowsburg, and if I can drop a name, the laundrette in Narrowsburg they have a beehive oven for making pizza. But they sort of elevate all of their product. It is outstanding. It's a great restaurant. There's also the Heron in Narrowsburg, which is elevated and really lovely. But the place is peppered with little spots along the way. You have to dig a little, but boy, it's pretty. And it's not overwhelmed with people. So if that's your thing, so
That's a great drive. I mean, I've only done it in the summer, but it's like you put some good music on, and that's a
yeah,
nice twisty road. And
absolutely.
to give you some sort of orientation, that Port Jervis is the point basically where New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey all come together.
Right. Right.
And right in that little, area.
Correct. Correct.
And yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
I'm going to go with in keeping us in New York for our friends at WGRC, Niagara on the Lake.
Ah,
And there's a couple different historical sites. One is from the War of 1812. There's a lot of different wineries in the area.
mhm.
It's all very pretty. It's just a little bit up from Lewiston, and it's described here where I'm looking at is someplace where you could drive along the Niagara River up Canada's Niagara Parkway for picture perfect houses that will make you want to get a dual citizenship. That's what it says here. So that would be one of the places. I mean, I like Western New York a lot,
Yeah.
and we did a lot of camping in the Adirondacks when we were little, and a couple times we went out that side, and Niagara Falls is always amazing to look at, and it's just different. I mean, it's a lot flatter, but I
Right.
think that can still be very interesting, and go someplace different. Stop in a place, get something local to eat. That is really a great thing to do. For
Sure.
one that I like around here, I just think heading up 91, stop in Northampton. It's always a great place to stop. There's a lot of cool little places to,
Yeah.
to get little cool things.
Mhm.
And then head north up to Greenfield. And at Greenfield, you basically want to take a left and head out Route 2 towards Shelburne Falls and Charlemont and North Adams. And there's a
Yeah.
bunch of different, like, very interesting touristy things. There's a zip line and in that area that's really, really cool. North Adams is a great little burg.
Mhm.
And Shelburne Falls I don't know if it would still be going on, but they have a lot of flowers in the center of town, a very artistic community. So it's a lot of cool little things, and just
Sure.
treat yourself to, going out there.
Right.
It is a busy time. There was a story out this year where a certain town in Vermont had closed one of the roads that people were always taking pictures on. So
Yeah.
because too many people are taking pictures.
Too many
Um,
pictures. Right.
yeah. So yeah, get out there and enjoy yourself this fall.
Right. That last drive you mentioned, for those of you who are beyond, like, seeing this from far away, that's called the Berkshires, which is a part of the Adirondack Mountains, which and the Appalachian chain, actually, which stretches all the way from Maine down to Tennessee. The Berkshires are the little spinoff into Massachusetts, and it's
Right.
honestly just one of the most beautiful and charming places in the world. It really is.
Yeah.
Good choice. Good
Yeah.
choice. If I may add something, just
Sure.
because you made me think of something. You mentioned in upstate New York wineries. I'm actually wearing something from, here it is, from, let's see if I can get that. There we go. That's Zugabee. Zugabee is a vineyard on Seneca Lake, which
Oh,
is
okay.
halfway between the 97 drive that I talked about and what you were talking about way out in Western New York. That's the Finger Lakes region of New York.
Mhm.
So Ithaca, New York, where Cornell University is in that area. Specifically look at Cayuga Lake, Seneca Lake, and Keuka Lake, which those are the three big ones from the Finger Lakes. There's probably several hundred wineries up there. And if wine is your thing, it's totally worth a trip. In fact, I would say look into it, find some nice lodging, and make a weekend of it. You can hit literally dozens of vineyards and not even put a dent in it. And the wine up there is absolutely amazing. They have done such an incredible job with the viticulture up there. And New York wines used to be kind of jokey, and now they're really taking their place as one of the most important winemaking regions in the world, and with good reason. I have had some outstanding bottles of wine from upstate New York, and it's not because it's in my backyard and because I'm there, once a year. It's because it's really good, really, really good. If you want to know which wineries to go to, I'd be glad to drop some more names besides Zugabee. But yeah, and also the lake scenery up there is, second to none. It's just,
Yeah.
you're going to get some nice foliage, but it's really the lakes that steal the show. It's a gorgeous vista every time you turn around.
There's a very good reason why their motto is Ithaca is gorgeous.
Yeah, yes. The gorges in Ithaca. Ithaca sits at the very end of Cayuga Lake, down on a flat region right by the lake. But the lake years ago carved out a big bowl. So once you get out downtown Ithaca, everything starts to rise. They're very steep hills, and Cornell is actually built right pretty much on one of these hills. Local creeks and rivers have cut these canyons into the hillside over time, and those are called the gorges. And it's worth taking a day to just travel around the city of Ithaca and see the gorges. It's mind-blowing how beautiful they are. So Ithaca is gorgeous. P.S. Do this in very late spring, summer, early fall. Winters up there are brutally harsh.
Awful,
As
awful.
somebody who went to Ithaca College for 2 years, I can tell you that it is inhospitably cold up there. The people that live up there have gotten used to it. And I'm from New England. I should be used to winters. I've never seen anything like that in my life. It's brutally cold. It's brutally cold. The rest of the year, absolutely lovely. And I got to be honest, the people up there are terrific, especially the ones in the wine field. They love their craft, and they treat it like art. And it's a great trip. It's a great little trip that most people don't know about. Do it.
My sister, who went and did her undergraduate and graduate work at the University of Maine in Orono. That's way up there.
Way up there, yeah.
Took a job at SUNY Cortland, which is south of Ithaca, in that general area. And she's like, "Oh yeah, this will be great. I'll be more temperate." Like, no. No, she was like, "This is worse than Maine. The winters here are worse than Maine."
Yeah, so. Cortland is not far from Syracuse, and they get some weather in Syracuse. You kind of have to have a different fiber of being to handle an upstate New York winter. Just for those who don't know, cold air passes over Lake Ontario, and they get what they call lake effect snow. So in Toronto, it's cold, but they don't get nearly the precipitation that they do on the opposite side of the lake. And sometimes they just get buried. And my hat's off to the people that live up there, because you've got a rugged soul to put up with those winters year after year. So.
Okay, we're going to wrap here on the Glenn and Doug foliage tour.
And not so much about cars, but still good stuff.
Right. We'll be driving cars and stuff like that. Where you go with, But anyway, so thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Glenn. And we will be back next week on Car-Pinionated. Good night.
Night.